What's up, everybody? In this video, we're going to have a look at a feature that Amazon released not too long ago. I stumbled across it a couple weeks ago, and I thought it was an interesting use case for AI. I hope through this video you'll see some of the power of AI. Furthermore, we'll see that using some of these techniques is really not something that only big tech companies can do, but really anyone can get started with. Alright, so with that being said, let's jump into it. Alright, so let's talk quickly about the Amazon customer reviews. So really they've been using them for a long time, almost 30 years. At the time they came out, they were considered pretty revolutionary and against the current way of thinking. Nowadays, tons of companies have them and they're kind of a staple. I know from my experience, if I'm going to buy something on Amazon, the first thing I'm going to look at is what the reviews say to try to get a feel if I want to buy it or not. Alright, so customer reviews have been around for a long time and are kind of a classic feature embedded in Amazon. But in this video, we'll see how LLMs, or large language models, can be used to improve the customer review experience for the end user. Alright, so let's have a quick demo of this feature. So here's a tennis racket I bought not too long ago. I just wanted to get back into tennis, so I just needed a cheap racket to kind of start playing. So I found this racket pretty quick, and I was pretty happy with the price. But I just wanted to make sure that, hey, look, this is actually a reasonable racket that's not going to kind of break instantly. So a lot of times what I end up doing on Amazon is just kind of scrolling past all this stuff. Don't really look at it too much. And I look at the reviews, especially this thing here with the 5-star, 4-star, and etc. And you can look at different reviews here. But I actually found this pretty helpful. So this is the customer say section, this thing I have highlighted right here. And it's just kind of a quick overview of the racket, or in general any product on Amazon. And in particular, I like these little boxes here. So if you're kind of, excited about a particular thing, say the weight is important to you, you could click on it. And it says customers like the weight of the tennis racket. They mention it's very light, well constructed, and not too heavy. That's fine by me. In fact, I wouldn't have minded if it was a bit heavier. That's all right. And you can kind of look around. So what was kind of important to me was the quality. And they say it's a good quality. Oh, there's a typo here, so that's pretty interesting that it came up there. So anyways, it's a good quality racket. It'd make a great guitar. That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny to have in the summary, to be honest, because that's probably not something many people say. But yeah, I think considering that the customers were, kind of happy with the quality and durability of the product, that was really what was important to me at the time. And having this summary here, especially if you can rely on it, is a pretty valuable time saver for me personally when I was buying this product, because really all I cared about was the quality, just to make sure it wasn't going to break instantly. And yeah, I was pretty happy with this experience of being able to look quickly through this and kind of find what was relevant to me. Alright, so let's have a look at what's on the docket for today. So I just wanted to explore the possibilities of large language models through this case study that we just demoed. Now, I'm saying Amazon is leveraging LLMs. To be honest, in this particular use case, they may not need LLMs exactly, but in any case, I'm going to show you what is possible to accomplish with perhaps not too much effort with large language models. To be honest, you don't have to be a titan like Amazon to make use of these kind of technologies, and if you thought this kind of feature would be useful for you, it's definitely in the realm of possibility. Alright, so again, let's kind of remind ourselves of the problem, this application of natural language processing. So again, we have a bunch of reviews, maybe lots and lots of them, maybe 10,000 for a single product or something like that. And the goal is to provide a quick, informative, and digestible summary. And I think this feature does a pretty good job of it, at least for myself. Having a look, it provides a quick text summary of all the reviews, which is interesting. It also provides relevant topics that customers might be interested in, and if you click on a particular topic, it will give more information for that. Alright, so that's the feature. Let's just kind of, talk openly about how this might be implemented using large language models. Alright, so the first step is just to build a $1 trillion e-commerce platform like Amazon, right? Well, not necessarily. That's kind of a joke. But really, we do need a bit of data to get started. So for instance, think of this use case that we've been talking about with the customer reviews. Now, these customer reviews are kind of just sitting there to be displayed to the end user, but really, if you think about it, all of these reviews are kind of a treasure trove of data that you could make use of. So it's definitely plausible that making use of this data could benefit your company. So in this particular use case, The goal is to benefit the end user experience through these summaries. In general, user experience is not going to be the only application of large language models. Just thinking off the top of my head, having all these topics properly categorized for each product could be invaluable when Amazon is ranking certain products given a customer search. This ranking of products is certainly a core aspect of Amazon and in general any e-commerce platform. And again, I want to reiterate, you don't have to, have a full team of 100 data scientists to make use of AI. Really, much smaller teams can get, quite a bit done. I will throw in the caveat that if you really are at the scale of Amazon, you probably do need a team of full-fledged data scientists working on a bunch of different things to really benefit from AI. However, if you're not quite at that scale yet, which to be honest, most of us mere mortals are not, you can still benefit from AI. All right, so let's get into a little bit of the details of how something like this could be implemented. Again, I'm not saying this is how Amazon does it. I'm just saying this is how you could use large language models to, solve this kind of problem. And to be honest, I'm really not going to get too technical here. I'm not going to start coding this thing out from scratch. However, I am going to dwell on some of the key points that I wanted to kind of address in this video. So the first point is that large language models are actually really good at small tasks. And if you try to make them do too much at once, that will really hurt the performance. Now, to be honest, it could be in 10 years that this is no longer the case, but at least for now, that's what I'm seeing. So I have a little diagram here that kind of explains at least one way to go about this problem. So you start with your customer reviews. From there, you try to get the topics, the ones that you can click on above the review. So now, once you have a topic and a review, you try to determine the sentiment of that review for that topic. Once you've aggregated all this, you try to provide that short text summary that we saw before. So in what follows, we'll kind of talk about some of these subproblems and how they fit together. All right, so let's take a look at the first subproblem. So really it's going to be a question and answering problem. So given a review, does it even pertain to a particular topic? That's going to be our first question. So having a look at this particular example, does a single review pertain to noise? Now this is a customer review of a PC, so the noise of the PC might be something that's important to people. And even just determining whether the review pertains to noise or not, because of course, not every person is going to mention the noise of the computer. So even really just getting a hold of whether or not this review does actually pertain to noise or not is a problem that you kind of have to solve. And it turns out that large language models can solve those kind of problems quite easily, to be honest. And from what I've seen, not only can they solve them easily, but they're actually pretty accurate for this kind of use case. I mean, looking at some of the reviews that they say pertain to noise, you can see that, that doesn't mention the word noise exactly, but you can kind of see like quiet as the key word in all three of them, so that's kind of interesting. But you could imagine there could be tons of different ways that a review could mention noise. And you can't just search for the keyword quiet, right? You got to be a bit more flexible in your approach. And this is where large language models come into play. So they really are flexible and they kind of can actually figure this kind of thing out pretty easily. All right, so to be honest, that's a huge step forward, is figuring out whether a review pertains to a particular topic or not. But there's still a bit left to do. So first of all, once you have a review on a topic, is it positive or negative? That's kind of important. Another thing that we have to think about is what are the actual important topics? So that's another kind of important question, and that's actually one of the harder ones. We have to produce those text summaries, so that's a third point. And to be honest, all of these can be solved with large language models. But I will highlight that it is important that we kind of break down each of these problems so that the large language models have a better shot at actually solving each of these individual problems. And that's kind of a common theme with using the LLMs, is that you can break a larger problem into a bunch of different subproblems. And maybe all or some of these subproblems can really be solved with the large language models. All right, so the next kind of subproblem we're going to talk about is sentiment analysis. So in other words, just determine whether the review is positive or negative. Again, LLMs can actually solve this handily, as I say. All right, so I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent here. But this was actually something that OpenAI observed a few years ago, and it was something that kind of actually inspired a lot of their push forward with the GPT series. So these large language models are composed of a bunch of neurons, And they're actually trained in a way that has nothing to do with predicting sentiment. However, it did actually turn out that there was a neuron inside of one of their early large language models that was able to figure out whether something was positive or negative. You can kind of see from the graph that there's this like orange and blue, and the point is they're clearly separated. So all the orange ones correspond to positive reviews, and all the blue ones correspond to negative reviews. And this is actually just coming from a single neuron in this large language model. So OpenAI was like, well, if a large language model can just like intrinsically learn what the sentiment is, what else can it kind of learn in the process? So this inspired quite a bit of research into this area, and it's still ongoing today, as we've seen with things like ChatGPT. All right, so that's the end of that tangent. But at the end of the day, we're just trying to determine the sentiment of a review, whether it's positive or negative. I do want to highlight, it can be kind of a subtle problem. A review might be positive for one topic and negative for another topic, so that's something that we have to keep in mind. All right, so I kind of want to dwell on that point for a bit. So let's have a look at this diagram. So we got a review and we got a topic, and we have to decide whether the review is good or bad with respect to that topic. Now, of course, the review may be very positive about a bunch of different things, but negative about the particular topic we have in mind. So again, I would just want to highlight that this kind of question is something that can be handily solved with large language models. I will say at the large scale of Amazon, it's very unlikely they're using LLMs to do this kind of thing, and there's probably cheaper ways to kind of get this done. However, LLMs are definitely a viable option here. All right, so let's have a look at the next subproblem. So this is going to be how to generate those concise summaries. So this might not come to a surprise to you anymore, but large language models can actually be used to generate the summaries. What you can do is provide a sample of the reviews for context to the LLMs and kind of adjust your prompt maybe in some subtle ways to kind of generate the correct format. So what do I mean by correct format? Well, if you just let large language models kind of go wild at the problem, I suspect they'll kind of generate a very long summary that might be too long to digest. Furthermore, you want it to kind of pertain to the particular topics that you've kind of had in mind. So that's something else you can kind of get the large language models to do. So if you want to generate a summary, that's certainly possible using large language models. I do want to kind of highlight that it's quite possible that Amazon doesn't even use large language models for this step. However, it's certainly a viable approach that one could take. And not just viable, but actually pretty effective. So to kind of summarize myself, you can use LLMs here, and you just have to be a bit clever with how you construct your prompts. And in order to be clever, you kind of have to know a little bit of how LLMs react to different prompts, as well as have kind of a clear set of instructions that you have in mind that you want for the output of your particular summaries. All right, so we're going to have a look at the last subproblem we're going to talk about today, and that's going to be the topic modeling. So basically, we have a product and we want to know what topics are going to be important to the customers. Now, this is really something you can do with LLMs as well. Not surprisingly, as we've been kind of saying this all along, that everything can be solved with LLMs. And again, we can use a sample of the reviews as context for the LLMs, and you can actually get it to generate the topics. Now, to be frank, this is probably by a good margin the hardest subproblem that we've talked about today. And unfortunately, it's also one of the problems that's pretty important to get right. In reality, you might use an LLM, as part of the solution, but you might also have your own techniques in mind, with your business knowledge that also might be useful here. But again, just to highlight, LLMs can be used here and to kind of help out with generating these topics. All right, so what are some of the key takeaways from today? Well, I do want to kind of reiterate, large language models can solve a variety of problems. So that's pretty impressive and something that really wasn't available maybe even a few years ago. Another point I wanted to kind of drive home is that a single kind of impressive application like the summarizer from Amazon Customer Reviews can actually be broken down into a bunch of simpler subproblems, and each of these simpler subproblems has a good chance of being solved by something like a large language model. All right, so that's it for this video. I hope you liked it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.